All right, welcome back to the deep dive. You know, when you start a D&D campaign, you've got those big choices to make. Right off the bat, you're picking your race, your class, you know, sketching out that background. But what happens after that?
Yeah, it's like laying the foundation of a house.
Yeah.
You've got the basic structure, but then comes the fun part, right?
Yeah,
Start adding all those personal touches, those details that make it truly yours.
exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, how to really personalize your D&D characters, make them unique, and go beyond just those initial choices. We're looking at some optional rules here, stuff from 5e that lets you, with your DMs okay, of course, really fine-tune your character and make them feel, well, just special.
It's like you've got the blueprint, right?
Okay.
But now you get to sculpt the character, decide what they can actually do.
Okay, so to do that, the source we're looking at today focuses on two main things, multiclassing and feats. Now, for you listening in, think of these as tools to, like, tweak your character's abilities, make them stand out from the crowd around the table. We're talking about going beyond those standard character archetypes.
Absolutely. We want to break down these mechanics, how they work within the game, and really think about what they mean for your character. How does your character evolve, And that's what this deep dive is all about.
So let's start with multiclassing. What's the basic idea?
Essentially, it's the ability to gain levels in more than one class. So instead of being just a fighter, you could sprinkle in a little rogue, maybe a bit of cleric, as long as you meet the requirements, of course.
So you could have a barbarian who's also in tune with nature, picking up some druid abilities.
Exactly. The source really emphasizes how this allows players to play those unique character concepts that maybe the standard classes don't quite capture. You're mixing and matching to get something really specific.
Yeah, it's like blending flavors to make a custom dish, right? And I think a key point here is that your overall character level is just the total of all your levels in every class. So you're a level 3 wizard and a level 2 fighter, bam, you're a 5th level character. Simple as that.
Exactly. Keep it simple. Keep it moving. Now, there is a bit of a trade-off here, which the source mentions.
Oh, right. So what's the catch? What do I have to sacrifice for all this cool customization?
Well, compared to someone who's only focused on one class and reached the same overall level as you might be giving up a bit of specialized power for that versatility. Single-class characters, they tend to get those high-level goodies in their chosen path a bit quicker.
So if I'm spreading my levels between, say, paladin and sorcerer, I might not get those super powerful spells or auras as quickly as someone who went all in on one or the other. It's about choosing between breadth of skills and depth in a single area.
Precisely. Now, to even start multiclassing, there are some prerequisites. You can't just wake up one morning and decide, hey, I'm going to be a little bit of everything today.
Right, there's got to be some rules. So what are the hurdles?
Well, to multiclass into a new class, you have to have a certain minimum ability score, both for your current class and the class you want to join. Thankfully, the source has this handy table, lays it all out nice and clear.
Yeah, like let's say you're playing a rogue, you're doing your sneaky thing, but then you get this calling to be a paladin. Well, you'd need at least 13 dexterity for your rogue, that makes sense. But you'd also need at least 13 strength and 13 charisma to qualify for the paladin side of things.
The source calls it natural aptitude. You need some underlying talent in those core abilities to even begin learning a new class later on.
So I can't be a clumsy, charisma-free paladin. Got it. Makes sense. So let's say I meet the requirements, I'm excited, I'm ready to multiclass. How does experience work? How do I level up when I'm juggling multiple classes?
Don't worry, it's actually pretty straightforward. The XP you need to level up is always based on your total character level, not on the individual classes.
Okay, so it doesn't get all complicated and messy with separate XP tracking for each class.
Nope, nice and clean. So, say you're a 6th level cleric and you decide to dabble in fighter. Take your first level there. Now you need the XP for an 8th level character to level up again, whether you want that next level in cleric or fighter.
That's a relief. Glad to know leveling up stays consistent, even when my character's becoming more, shall we say, multifaceted. Now, what about hit points? That seems like it could get a little tricky.
It's all about building blocks, really. When you gain a level in a new class, after your first level, you gain the hit points for that new class, just like you normally would.
Okay, so at my very first level, if I start as a barbarian with that D12 hit die, I get the full 12 plus my constitution modifier. But if I later decide to be a wizard for a level, I roll that D6, add my constitution modifier, and that's what I get.
Exactly. Add all those hit points together from all your levels, and boom, you've got your total hit points. And your hit dice, those dice you roll to regain hit points during a short rest, those are based on every class you have levels in.
So if I have levels in classes with the same hit die, like fighter and barbarian, both with a D10 after the first level, I just have a bunch of those D10s to use. Like a fighter 5, barbarian 5 would have 10 D10s.
You got it. But if you multi-class into a class with a different hit die, say a Fighter 5, Wizard 5, you'd have 5 of those D10s and 5 of the Wizard's D6s to manage. Now, how about your proficiency bonus? That bonus you add to a lot of your rolls. Does that change based on how you've split your class levels?
That's a good question. It does seem like it could get complicated quickly.
Luckily, it's simple. Your proficiency bonus is just based on your total character level. Remember that Fighter 3 Rogue 2 we talked about earlier? They're a 5th level character overall, so their proficiency bonus is +3. Doesn't matter how those levels are split.
Awesome. Keeps things streamlined. Now, when you first pick a class, you usually get a bunch of proficiencies like skills, weapons, armor, the whole shebang. So if I'm multi-class, do I instantly become an expert in everything my new class can do?
Not quite. The source has this handy table that spells out what proficiencies you get when you multi-class into a new class. And it's important to remember, it's only a part of what you'd get if you started as that class at level 1.
Ah, so it's like a taste of the new class, not the full buffet.
Exactly. Like if you multi-class into cleric, you get proficiency in light and medium armor, shields, and simple weapons, but you don't necessarily get all those skill proficiencies a first-level cleric would choose.
Right, so I can't just become a master of everything overnight. Makes sense. It's like you're dipping your toes in the water of a new class, not diving headfirst into the deep end. Now, let's talk class features. Those cool things each class can do. You get these as you level up in each class, right?
Absolutely. But the source does point out some special rules for certain features when you're multiclassing.
Oh, so it's not as simple as I get all the goodies from every class I take a level in.
Not always. Let's take Channel Divinity, for example.
Okay, so that's a cool ability some classes get. What's the catch when you're multi-classing?
Well, if you already have Channel Divinity from one class, let's say Cleric, and you take levels in another class that also has it, like a Paladin,
Yeah.
you do get the Paladin's Channel Divinity effects.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You don't get more uses of Channel Divinity just because you have it from multiple classes.
So no spamming Channel Divinity all the time just because I dipped my toes into 2 classes that have it?
Nope. You only get more uses when you level up in a class that specifically gives you more. So a Cleric 6, Paladin 4, they still only have 2 uses of Channel Divinity between rests based on their Cleric level. But when they do use it, they can pick from any of the effects they have, Cleric or Paladin.
Ah, so it's about options, not quantity. I can do more things with my Channel Divinity, but not necessarily more often. What about extra attack? That's a big one for a lot of those fighty classes.
Yeah, that's a core feature for many, and the rule's pretty clear. Extra attack doesn't stack from different classes. So if you get extra attack from being a 5th level fighter, and then later you also get it from being a 5th level ranger, you still only get 2 attacks on your turn, not 4.
So no quad-wielding attacks just because I'm a multi-classing combat master. Makes sense. Gotta keep things balanced. What about defensive stuff? Like unarmored defense. Both barbarians and monks get that right.
Yep, they do. And if you already have unarmored defense from one class, you can't get it again from another. It's not like you become doubly unarmored. You just use the calculation from the first class that gave you that feature.
Okay, 1 set of super tough skin is enough. I get it. Now, let's talk spellcasting. That can seem like a real head-scratcher when you're multi-classing.
It can be a little complex, but the source breaks it down pretty well. Your spellcasting, when you're multiclassing, depends on your levels in those spellcasting classes, but also your individual progress in each of them. First things first, we got to figure out the spells you know and the spells you have prepared.
Okay, so this is where it starts to get a little complicated, right? How do we keep track of all those spells?
Actually, it's simpler than you might think. You figure those out separately for each of your spellcasting classes, just like you would if you were only that one class.
So, like, if I'm a ranger at 4th level and I've also got 3 levels of wizard under my belt, I look at the ranger table to see how many spells a 4th level ranger knows, and then I check the wizard info to see how many spells a 3rd level wizard can prepare from their spell book.
Exactly. And remember, each spell you know is tied to the class that gave it to you. That means you use that class's spellcasting ability score, wisdom for ranger spells, intelligence for wizard spells, and that fancy spellcasting focus you might have, like a holy symbol for a cleric, well, you can only use that for spells from the cleric class.
Keeps things tidy, ensures each magical tradition is distinct, right?
Right. Now, what about spell slots, the things you use to actually cast your spells? This is where your combined levels really come into play.
All right, so this is where all my different levels come together to boost my spellcasting power.
You got it. You add up all your levels from the full caster classes, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, those count fully. Then you add half your levels, rounded down from the half-caster classes, Paladin and Ranger. That total is your spellcaster level, and that determines how many spell slots you have.
So if I'm a Ranger for Wizard 3, the Ranger levels count as half, so that's 2, plus the full 3 from Wizard gives me a spellcaster level of 5, right?
Spot on. And a 5th level multi-class spellcaster has a certain number of spell slots at each level. You can check that multi-class spellcaster table in the source for the specifics. What's interesting is you might end up with spell slots of a higher level than the spells you actually know from your individual classes.
Wait, so even though my highest level in either Ranger or Wizard is only 3rd, my combined spellcasting level could give me access to, say, 3rd level spell slots. But I don't even know any 3rd level spells yet. What do I do with those higher level slots?
That's a great question. Even if you don't know any spells of that level, you could still use those higher level slots to cast your lower level spells. And if a lower level spell gets stronger when you cast it using a higher level slot, well, you get that benefit. It's all about strategy, my friend.
So I could cast a simple 1st level spell, like Healing Word, using a 3rd level spell slot, and it would heal more, even though I don't know any 3rd level healing spells yet. That's pretty clever.
It is. It lets you get more mileage out of those lower level spells as you progress and get access to those stronger spell slots through your combined spellcasting levels. Now, there's one last spellcasting rule we got to touch on. Pact magic, specifically for warlocks. How does that work when you're multi-classing?
Yeah, warlocks are unique, right? They have their own thing going on with spell slot.
They do. So let's say you've got the spellcasting feature from a class like Sorcerer, and you also have pact magic from being a warlock. Well, good news. You can use the spell slots from your pact magic to cast spells from your spellcasting class, and vice versa.
So I can use my warlock slots for sorcerer spells and my sorcerer slots for warlock spells. That's awesome.
It's a really cool way to blend those two different magical styles, right? Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground on multiclassing. Let's shift gears now and talk about feats. What are they all about?
Feats sound intriguing. What makes them special?
They're like, the special talents, maybe some hardcore training you did, or just some inherent ability that goes beyond your typical class features. They're what make your character stand out, even among others of the same class.
Yeah.
If you want the full rundown, the player's handbook is the place to go. It's got a list of all the feats and what they do.
So instead of just getting better at what my class already does, feats give me totally new abilities or maybe really boost certain skills or combat stuff. So how do I actually get a feat during the game?
Okay, so this is using an optional rule, but the standard way is to choose a feat instead of an ability score improvement. At certain levels, your class usually lets you bump up 1 or 2 ability scores, right? Well, instead of doing that, you can pick a feat.
Ooh, so it's a tough choice. Do I want to be a little bit stronger or smarter overall? Or do I want to learn this cool new trick, this special ability, by taking a feat?
It's a real decision point for your character, and it can be tough. Now, the source does mention some important stuff about feats. Usually, you can only take each feat once, unless it specifically says otherwise. And a lot of feats have prerequisites.
Prerequisites? Like what?
Like, you might need a minimum score in a certain ability, or you have to be a specific race, and you have to keep meeting those prerequisites. If you somehow drop a low, you can't use the feat until you meet the requirement again.
So I can't just grab any feat I want willy-nilly. I got to make sure my character actually qualifies for it.
Makes sense, right? You got to have the underlying skills or traits to back up those fancy feats.
All right, so feats are all about adding those unique abilities that really define my character's strengths and how they play the game. So, to wrap things up, what are the big takeaways for you listening in?
Well, the most important thing is that both multiclassing and feats are optional rules. Remember that. They're there to give you more ways to personalize your character, make them truly one of a kind. Multiclassing, that's about blending different classes, coming up with those creative, unexpected character builds. Feats are for those specialized talents and expertise that really change how your character plays.
And don't forget, both these options need your DM's approval. You can't just decide to use them on your own. It's a team effort. Talk to your DM, see if they fit the campaign, the story you're all building together.
Exactly. It's got to work for everyone at the table.
So next time you're thinking about a new character, really consider this. How could multiclassing or picking the right feats open up some crazy character builds you never thought of? What kind of stories could you tell? What kind of abilities could you unlock by stepping off the beaten path?
It's definitely worth exploring. The possibilities are huge, and these optional rules really let you use your imagination to create some truly awesome D&D heroes.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? All right, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Until next time.